Hey, it's Rob Anspach, and welcome back to eHeroes. This is episode 197. And on this episode, if you see in the back, you'll see the words subtle skills. I brought on Brian Galke, and he's going to teach us how to lie to each other. Well, not really, but we're going to be able to look at people's facial expressions and tell if they're lying to us. Is that
It's
true?
even no, that's more like lie to me. But what I'm really going to teach people is how to look at people's resting face, and then teach them how to understand people a little bit better.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was a good show.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I still watch it. It's on Hulu, so you can. I love that show and The Mentalist are two of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen the show, it's called Lie to Me, and the guy that's in the show studies the micro expressions on people's faces to
Hmm.
see, if they're being deceptive in any way. And yeah, it's a great show, and but I think a little bit of it has been stretched a little.
It has, but it's based on actually, and this will get us on a whole other tangent real fast. But Paul Ekman was the consultant for that. So Paul Ekman wrote the book on micro expressions, or really subtle expressions that people's faces do. So he was the consultant for the show. So if you go and Google Paul Ekman, Ekman, and Lie to Me, it talks about how he taught them how to do all the expressions for each individual episode of Lie to Me. So it's a fascinating. His books are really thick and they're not very picturesque. So it's a little bit hard to learn, but he has the FACS system, I think, FACS or something, where you can learn the micro expressions, or MAC system. And you can actually go and learn it. And there's ones that you can play with. So just Google Paul Ekman and you can learn about micro expressions.
Now
See, I do know something about it.
now I met you at Steve Sims Speakeasy in July of 2021.
Right.
And you were handing out these pictures, and I thought I had one around here, but we're just going to use Steve Sims' little picture here.
Yeah.
Now erase everything that's in Steve's face, so you don't have the eyebrows, and you don't have his smile, and you don't have his beautiful chrome dome head here. And you gave us markers, and we could put, rounded eye, lashes, and all these things, and then you would tell us what everything means. And it was pretty
Yeah.
cool because I walked into a bank right after that, and the gal had shaved her eyebrows
Yep.
and made them pointed, like, kind of like a pyramid.
Yeah. Angled. Yep.
And I couldn't stop but stare at her. And I'm like, and I'm staring, and my wife's elbowing me, going, "Stop staring at her." But I thought it was the funniest thing because, that's not natural.
It's not. And the funny thing is, most times, like 90% of the time, when they shave their eyebrows, an angled eyebrow is what they put in there. And we're actually going to cover that here in a few slides on what an angled eyebrow means. But women have the advantage through makeup to alter their face, right? Guys can grow beards, but women can actually go and shave off and enhance lips and everything. So it's crazy it's not just genetically what are you born with, it's not epigenetics, but also what can you alter about your face. So for example, Steve Sims, we'll see a picture of him here in a little bit too, that chin extender he's got. So it's funny, everything you're talking about, well, yeah, we'll actually cover here in a minute.
It's funny because when you were going through the whole thing at Steve's, I was trying to be sarcastic because you kept, bringing out, hey, I found you on Facebook and I did this and I did this. And I'm like, well, geez, I don't even know this guy, but there's no darn way I'm having him look at my Facebook.
Well, oddly enough, you're in here.
But yeah, and I'm sure, he's like, oh, but hey, you're the ultimate spy. I mean, you just go through and look at every creeping around and but you know what? I think it's a skill that everybody needs to have because, I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur. Everybody that you go out there and teach is in some way an entrepreneur, and whether they have employees or vendors or clients, you need to kind of read them in some way to know if they're going to be honest or if they're going to be, you know, uh,
Yeah, how do they take in
right.
information? How do they process information? For anybody who's ever read the book, The Five Love Languages, what I'm going to show everybody today is pretty much the same thing, which is not just think about how do I think, but how does somebody else think? And then what do I need to alter in my presentation so I'm speaking their language? And like you brought up, look, this skill, I learned it in 2011, and it is a learned skill. That's the most important thing of what we're going to talk about today is I was taught it, and I love teaching to other people. So in 2019, I reached out to my mentor and I said, look, I want to help people like you helped me. And that's where Subtle Skills was born. And we'll see it when we come into it. But why do I call it Subtle Skills? Because I don't tell anybody what I'm doing. It's got a high 90 effective rate. Because once I teach it to somebody, then everybody's like, oh, great. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're doing fine. And it's too late by then because I've already done it. Right? And that's the real advantage is body language is awesome. And we'll talk about it, but that's reactive. And every school, so I'm an introvert by nature, but I'd love to be around people. So I say I'm an introvert extrovert. And everything that I was around people, I read up on body language, NLP, you name it, but those were all reactive. Right. And face reading was proactive. And so I could literally go when I was on a presentation team for work, and I could go in my hotel room and practice my projector, my PowerPoint, but people were always the unknown until I learned the skill that I'm going to teach everybody today. And it changed my life because socially I can go out, and this is why I love teaching it. I mentioned I was an introvert. I used to go out to networking events because I'd have to, and I was always stuck in the prison of my own mind. And when you learn to get out of your head and focus on somebody else, and then you're present in the moment, and it changed my life. Absolutely changed my life. So,
yeah, let's take a look. Let's jump right into the slides and and see where I turn up.
Yeah, you got to enable it for me so I can share the screen.
Oh yeah, it's the technology.
I need the power.
Advanced sharing. All participants. Let's do this.
Right.
I think you can do it now.
Yep. Can you see the screen?
Oh, yes.
All right. Perfect. So there will be a few times I will look away because I have master control center here. So I have my laptop, which I'm looking at you guys, and I got two monitors on either side. So actually what I'll do is I'll cheat a little bit. I'll move it right up here so I don't have to move quite as much. But
for those catching this on audio, we'll try to go through everything. Or Brian will, so you understand what's going on.
Absolutely. For the audio people that are listening, I use phrases that explain the feature, so we'll be able to pick that up no problem whatsoever. So what I call this is the unfair advantage that but you don't know that you know it. And I know it's a mouthful when I say that, but what we're going to teach you today, we all have a little bit of basic training about it, and that's how to understand people based on their facial features. And people say, I've never received any training on it whatsoever. I'm like, all right, well, let's take a look at our words and our language. So we say things like, I've got an eye for this. I've got an ear for this, keep a stiff upper lip, take one on the chin. These are all ways to describe somebody's personality, but we're talking about their facial features. So just going through a few of those, upper lip, if I say, hey, keep a stiff upper lip, that means like, keep your emotions in check, right? So if you see somebody who has a flatter upper lip, and I'm going to show you guys an example a little bit later, I don't ask them personal questions until they tell me something personal about themselves. And when you say take one on the chin, it's a boxing term, but somebody who has a strong chin handles adversity and criticism better than somebody who has a smaller chin. And so all these phrases that we say, we kind of half pay attention to it, but it's based on that authors and artists used to go and take classes in something called physiognomy. And what physiognomy was, it went all the way back to the Greeks, and it was a studying of the facial features and the muscles in the face, because the mind creates movement, movement creates muscle. And what they were looking for was patterns that you would see in people. And so why, again, is it important? How does it affect us? Because authors, before you could put pictures in modern books, they had to learn to describe every character in the book. And there's only two ways to do that. And that was to describe their facial features and their actions. So if you wrote a book which just walked in and said, Steve's the villain, right? And Rob's the hero, well, that'd be the end of the book. But you'd have to walk in and say, Steve with his pointed chin and his downturned nose, right? And then they would say, and here comes Rob with his strong chin and his chiseled jaw. They would describe those same things. Well, it's no different than because we were talking about Disney before this, you can turn on any Disney show and hit mute, and immediately who's the hero and who's the villain. So we've been trained. We just haven't been formally trained.
Right.
But ironically, who has been formally trained? Attorneys for jury consulting, not in every law school, but there are special people who are certified in physiognomy. And then it's taught in Europe in some places. So it used to actually be part of modern or of scholastic education. But what happened is the bumps on the head, known as phrenology, that was like, if you got a bump right here on your head, then you're a criminal, so we got to throw you in prison. And they would do that. They go, oh no, this bump here. So what happened is they tried to identify and say like, oh, that's it, you're a criminal. And so when that got dismissed, because they call it the science of the bumps on the head, then face reading went with it. So I call it facial feature analysis because I look at individual features, but it is face reading basically. But yeah, it got dismissed when it did with the phrenology and the bumps on the head. So how do I use it? Because everybody always wants to know what's in it for me, right? I can instantly create relationships with people now. It helps me when especially if I'm going to a new business or a new client, understanding how to talk to the gatekeeper versus how to talk to the manager versus how to talk to the CEO, you name it. And I deal with some pretty daunting characters. We were talking about this earlier. I go into some kind of crazy locations for work, and there's all kinds of personalities. And by looking at their face, I figure out how do I need to adjust what I want to say so I'm speaking their language. Here's the fun part. Because I travel, I've gotten free upgrades in hotels, airports, you name it. So I was in an airport right after I did this event with in Phoenix with Steve Sims. We did a private speakeasy that Steve did. And I was one of the speakers. Well, when I was flying back, I went through Indianapolis, I had to go visit a customer. And when I was trying to fly back to Dallas, where I live, we had those ice storms. Well, and I couldn't get back to Dallas. And they wanted to put me on a 8 o'clock flight at night to get to New York at 2 a.m, sit at the airport for 4 hours, and then take a flight back to Dallas. That's like, 10 hours of travel. No, I'm not going to do that. So I went to the airport early, put myself on standby, and I walked up to the gate agent because you can't, when you do standby, you just have to go up and put your place in line. And I read her eyebrows and I identified with her issues. I'm like, oh, you're co-workers and you control the weather. It's all your fault. You guys are probably responsible for the maintenance on the plane too, right? And I got her laughing. I said, hey, look, I'm trying to get on this earlier flight. And she goes, oh, you're trying to get on this one? I said, yeah, I got the 8 o'clock flight, but I'd love to get on this one. And I just talked to her for 2 minutes. Guess who got on the flight? Me. Guess who ended up in first class? I did as well. And it was all just been taking a few seconds to talk to her. And if you decide to use this and tell people what you're doing, right, then you usually end up with like free drinks, free food, because everybody wants to bring somebody else over and go, no, look at their face. What does it say? So that's why I say celebrity-like status in a small setting. The number one question people ask is, well, isn't it all genetics? Yes, what you inherit is your genetic code, but what happens to you over time is known as epigenetics. And so using the picture that we have up on screen, you've got a guy with a big upper body, big biceps, and little tiny legs. Well, that's not genetics. That's the muscles that he chose to move during that time that alters that. Your face is no different. So when our parents all warned us and said, don't make that face, it'll stick that way, it's kind of a true story. So that's why what happens, again, mind creates movement, movement creates muscle. And you can actually look at identical twins, right? Same genetic code, grew up in the same house, but they had different life experiences in school, in sports, romantically. And so they made those different facial adjustments. And what happens is over time, it alters your face. And so a face doesn't tell you where somebody's going. Like people come up and ask, does it tell you about the future and think? No, it's more a map of where somebody's been. And just, again, how do they think and process information? So again, you can look at identical twins and find little subtle differences, and you can nail this stuff. Like the accuracy rate on this is high 90s. It's not 100%, but it's very damn accurate. I like to start with pictures of me because usually if we're doing this live in front of people, then, I'll pull somebody up, and you've seen that happen. So I would start with like, hey, throw yourself out there. Now, not only did I think I had really cool hair when I was 18, because I knew I wouldn't have it now, but you start looking at the different facial features. And so I'm moving my mouse over here. This eyebrow was straight. Now it's angled. I'll explain what that is in a minute. My eyes used to droop down. I was raised in kind of an environment that we could always tell you what problem was going to happen. And so when you see somebody whose eyes are angled down, that's literally somebody who can see the downside. But I like to rephrase it as that's somebody who's good at anticipating problems. Well, as I got into self-development and other things, look, my eyes evened out. So this side's even, this side actually angles up a little bit. And then my ears used to stick out a little bit more. That's more independent. So you think about ears like on wind drag. They push back, and as you become more of a conformist, they go closer to your head. So that's just pictures of me, in a 20-year difference. And I didn't go get my eyebrow done that way. This eyebrow became angled when I became a corporate trainer. And once I had to learn the material and teach it to other people, that's how you get an angled eyebrow. It's what's my angle? Help me understand it so I can help other people. We'll go more into that. And there's never been a better time than to learn to understand people based on their facial features, because some people still are afraid to meet in person. We're doing a lot more over Zoom.
Right.
And some people still feel very comfortable wearing a mask. So what I'm going to teach today is eyebrows and eyes, just a few things about the eyes, because if they're wearing a mask, you can still see that information. And I am known as like the eyebrow guy, because this is what I teach everybody. And the reason for it is eyebrows lead to eye contact. And so if you're nervous and you don't really know how to look at somebody, you can start with eyebrows. You just take a few seconds to think of what do their eyebrows say about them. And you're getting credit the entire time for making eye contact. So kind of crazy, I know. And then what happens is when everybody else is still trying to figure out who the customer is, you already think like, what should I adjust to speak their language? So that's why it's an unfair advantage. I mentioned this earlier. This is why it was a game changer for me. It was the first proactive skill that I could do. So going in, again, being an introvert, but going into these sales situations or even going to a networking event or going to a wedding, you name it, I used to do the same thing as everybody else. Oh, what do you do for a living? You know, I didn't know what to say, and I was always overthinking things in my head. Right. But because I proactively went and looked at people's pictures, or if I walked in, I focused on one facial feature, I was focusing on how do I create a connection with them instead of thinking about me. That's why I say it got me out of the prison of my own mind. Now, what Rob mentioned earlier is when I went to Steve Sims' event, you're not allowed to tell anybody who the speakers are. So I'm sitting in there like a regular audience member. But what I did is I had Steve add me to the Facebook group. And as people said, hey, I'm so excited to be there, I would capture a picture of their face. And so like Matt and Lindy are perfect examples of when I got there, I just walked up and started talking to them like, oh, hey, how have you guys been? You know, da, 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 da. And they're like, oh, what is this? Your third or fourth speakeasy? I'm like, no, this is my first one. And it's because I literally had gone and analyzed their face. I'm going to show you pictures of that. Here's the other thing I think is really important. Everybody needs to understand body language. These are my two favorite books. It's What Every Body is Saying by Joe Navarro. Very picturesque book. It's a great one. And then the yellow one I think is more important this day and age. And that is Janine Driver's book, You Say More Than You Think. Because it's about analyzing your own body language and what are you telling to other people? Because we all pick up by nature on incongruency. So if somebody's like, yep, I'm just the happiest person known to man. You know, we pick up on that incongruency and we trust body language over language. And so the first book is how do you pay attention to other people? And the second one is what am I projecting and or presenting to other people? So it's a great, great book. My challenge with body language right now is, again, we're on the phone a lot or we're over Zoom. And like right now, I can't tell your arms crossed or your legs crossed, can't really see it. And because we become such an electronic society, even if we get in the same room as people, there's, you know, laptops in the way, you can't see under the desk. So it's still limited. I think it's an important skill, but it's kind of challenging this day and age. And here's the thing that I really love, and that is who would you rather look at? The person who's looking at you in the face to analyze your face or looking you at the eye, or the person who's looking down at your body language. And that's what was a game changer for me is you can kind of still pay attention to body language without diverting your eyes down. But if you're analyzing somebody's face, people feel that connection that you're focusing on them and they feel seen and heard. So you know Brian Bogert, right?
Yes.
So he was at the same event with me in Phoenix, and he talked about the 4 pillars of human needs. Physical safety, emotional safety. They want to feel seen and heard, and they want to feel a connection. Right. Well, by learning to analyze people's faces, they feel seen and heard, and that's what creates that connection with people.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's natural. Yeah.
With social media, it was always know, like, and trust. And starting in January, I started saying, hey, but people need to feel safe too. So it's know, like, trust, and feel safe. And
absolutely.
And you just said it there. Safety is people need they need to feel safe around you.
Absolutely. And this is how you do it. I mean, being an introvert, I can't emphasize enough. I went from being on the help desk to I'm a regional vice president of sales because of the skill I'm going to teach you guys today. And I speak about it. So I get up in front of 400 or 500 people to teach this. Don't get me wrong. I'll wrap myself out. I just spoke for the Texas Educators Association 2 weeks ago. And what I learned is I still get nervous. So do not drink water out of a glass. Because when I went to go pick it up to take a sip, my hand was shaking. I was spilling the water. I'm like, okay, I can't drink water. So my trick now is bottled water only. So, Other skills that I learned, like when I was trying to figure people out, was how to win friends and influence people. I still think everyone should read this book, but it talked about things like, oh, go into their office and look for pictures of their family, look for sports emblems, what books do they have behind them? So for example, I can talk to Rob about his books that are on his shelf. But when we walk into most environments today, they have to be sanitized. You're not allowed to decorate your office at work like you used to, or people want to meet in the conference room or meet at a coffee shop. So a lot of that skill is still kind of wasted. And if you ask somebody too many personal questions, and let's say they have that upper lip that's flat, well, now they feel like you're just like this right in front of them asking too many questions. So it's learning to adjust with things. So now I've talked enough about it. Let's get to showing people about it. For anybody who's not seen the show The Voice, these are the judges. And then The Voice, what happens is they sit like this and they listen to the artist. And if they like who they see or what they hear, then they turn around to see the person performing. Well, that's perfect, because while you see 4 judges, I see 4 people whose ears are very large in proportion to their head and their eyes are small. So this tells me that they're more auditory people than they are visual. So if I was going to work with them, I would give them a call or I'd send them a voice text versus a regular text or send them an email, because they're not visual people. So these are people, send them a video, call them, send them a voice text. I guarantee you they'll respond faster. And then you can take it to another level. You start saying things that are auditory words like, hey, does this sound like a good idea? Do you hear where I'm coming from? When you start to do that, you're literally speaking somebody else's language. And to give a quick analogy to this, when I used to travel internationally, when I first started, I was the obnoxious American, right? Who thought, oh, everywhere I go, you should speak English. And if you don't, I'll just speak English louder and you'll somehow understand me.
And slower.
Exactly. And what I found is if I learned basic phrases, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, please, thank you, it changed my trip, because they knew I was trying to speak their language. Right. And so they worked with me. Mm-hmm. And it just changed the way the world worked for me. And that's what I try and do now is I'm just trying to find commonality. Where's common ground? And again, I recommend for everybody the book, The 5 Love Languages. In that book, they say the barriers to communication are broken down when you learn to speak the other person's language. And that's exactly what learning to just literally everybody's face tells us how to interact with them. So it's like walking around with a resume of how do you want to understand me, but it's written, it's right here.
Yeah, for me, it's send me a text. You can even send me a voicemail on regular phone. However, you send me a voicemail through Facebook chat or WhatsApp, I can't stand it.
Oh yeah, that to me has to be an earned right. Like, okay, if I say use Voxer or whatever, good. But if I don't tell you to do that and you're just doing it, it annoys me too. So, the other question people ask, and like I said, it's a proactive skills. Well, how is it proactive? We all know our friend here, Steve Sims, right? So what I did is I just went into LinkedIn, typed in his name, and then I can just by this one picture, I can say several things like flatter upper lip, where we talked about earlier. He's got recessed eyes. What does that mean? He's got high ears. He's got a rounded forehead. And once you know what each of these are, then you can figure out, okay, how can I speak their language? And how do you adjust things, right? And of course, he's always drinking old fashioned, so I think he has excellent taste as well. But not everybody has the best picture. I don't know, like yours.
Yeah.
So what I did is, even though I can't see much on your picture because your head's tilted, you've got your eye pulling your finger pulling your eyebrow up, but I can still see larger nostrils. So you're a risk taker, right? You've got a fuller upper lip, so you have no problem talking about yourself. So if I ask you personal questions, you're not going to be offended and feel like I just crossed some barrier right away. And you've got a good, strong chin, so I know we can get straight to the point. I don't have to do the sandwich technique of here's something good, here's something bad, here's something good, right?
Oh, please.
Yeah. So, and that's just from, your sarcastic picture here, which ironically says no more sarcasm. So I can go.
It says needs more sarcasm.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Needs more sarcasm. Till I was paying really good attention there. But yeah, so I can go and look up people proactively, and that's what I love about it. So with that being said, I want to teach people. They ask, how long did it take you to learn it? I learned it pretty quick. I used to go to the guy who taught me. And by the way, I just randomly ran across this guy. There was a girl coming into town. She wanted to go to dinner. She called to stand me up for dinner, and I was mad. And she's like, no, you got to come meet this guy. I'm like, no, I already sat down. I've got my wine. I was being stubborn. She's like, no, you need to come meet this guy. And I have to thank her for it because that's when I met Mac Fulfer. And he's the one who taught me how to understand people based on their facial features.
And that
And
is your origin story right there.
that is exactly it. So I like to teach eyebrows because, again, eyebrows lead to eye contact. And so I like to use phrases like, hey, just browsing, because I want to keep people's attention. And I'm a little bit of an oddball like everybody else, right? And so people are like, this is BS. Eyebrows aren't that important. I'm like, all right, well, go and just Google people without eyebrows. I didn't even type in celebrities. Is it not disturbing?
Oh, that one. I don't even know her name, but she.
Angelina Jolie. I
Oh
guarantee you
my
that's the one you're looking at.
God,
This
that
one?
was horrible.
Well,
Yeah.
look at Nicolas Cage. I mean, the same thing. So I didn't create these pictures. You can see here. I just went to Google and typed in people without eyebrows. I mean, look, I'm a huge Ryan Reynolds fan. Look at him. You don't even recognize him. So we pay attention to eyebrows. We just, again, we haven't been formally taught, but that's what I'm going to teach you today. And I already mentioned this numerous times. Eyebrows lead to eye contact. But why I also love eyebrows is because it doesn't matter how close or how far you are from someone, you can still make out the basic shapes of their eyebrows.
Mhm.
And why eyebrows are important, because if we're lucky enough to be born with sight, that is the way we learn to take in the world. We're born with a fear of heights and a fear of loud noises, but we don't understand language and we can't talk, right? We can make sounds. So all babies are born with large eyes. So eyebrows were designed to keep dirt, sweat, water, you name it, out of your eyebrow. And what happens is, because again, as we alter our face over and over again, our eyebrows adjust, and it tells us a little bit about how do we take in and how do we process data. So again, going back to it, I love the fact that all of our language is peppered with how to understand facial features. So if you go and Google highbrow comedy and lowbrow comedy, what it'll tell you is highbrow comedy is where a comedian tells a joke and it takes you a few seconds to get the joke and then you laugh. Lowbrow humor is like Jackass, right? You just see it instantly. It's a physical stunt and you giggle or you wince in pain.
Right.
And so people's eyebrows are no different. So if you were to picture data racing down somebody's forehead to get into their eye, well, the higher the eyebrow is, it's like a speed bump in the middle of the street. So highbrow has to go slow, go over the speed bump, and go into the eye. But if your eyebrow is right close to your eye, then you can picture data racing from your forehead to your eye. It can race down. It only has to slow down right before it goes into the eye. So when you're dealing with somebody, the higher the eyebrow, the more time they need to make a decision. So if you want to see what that looks like on somebody, here's an example of a lady where it's almost 2 fingers of space between her eye and where her eyebrow is. So this is somebody that if you're dealing with them and you're asking them to make a quick decision, if you make them feel rushed, you may have made a sale or you may have made a connection, but you'll never have a relationship or a client, because the minute you leave, they'll have buyer's remorse because you push them out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I never really got into, was trying to learn 101 different ways to sell something. One, I can't remember that many, and two, I always felt that it was high pressure, and
Yes,
all those high pressure sales tactics lead to people having buyer's remorse.
absolutely. And literally, so there are people that want that, like the guy I'm getting ready to show you here, get straight to the point, right? Like he understands concepts fast, so
Mhm.
he's going to make a decision fast. Ironically, when somebody understands things very fast, what could be seen as a negative is they tend to interrupt people. It's not for any other reason other than they got it and they're excited and they want to help you get there as fast as they did.
Mhm.
So I used to take offense to being interrupted. I'm like, I'm talking. But what I learned to realize is if their eyebrow is close to their eye, they're not interrupting because they think they're more important. They're trying to help. And that's what I love about when you start learning to look at people's faces. You give them grace where there used to be judgment. And it's a game changer. Like I talked about earlier, that the downward angle eyes, I'll cover that again in a minute. I used to think, oh, there's a pessimist, there's a negative Nancy. I just realized, no, they're worried about what we have to look out for, right? They see potential problems. They see the potholes in the road versus other people whose eyes are angled up. They're the perpetual optimists. They think, oh, just everything's going to work out great. Well, we need the best of both of those, right? So it's just kind of crazy. taking a look at the picture on the screen, I know there's some people listening auditorily. There's a guy on the picture and the girl next to him who has like 2 to 3 fingers between their eyebrows and their eyes. So you know they're going to need a lot of time to make a decision. So if you're going in and you're selling something to this person, then you know it's not going to be a one call close. And it may take follow-up time, but they'll eventually make a decision. So this is where follow-up would be key with this individual.
Mm-hmm.
Next page, we just have a variety of faces. So for everybody who's watching, a little bit of space here. He's raising his eyes up, so that's not a fair picture or representation. Eyebrows close to eye, so makes decisions very fast. This is called a non-read because there's not really much space, and same with her. But I love how she's even blurred out, and you can still see what her eyebrow shapes are, which is what we're going to jump into next. I like to talk about, especially when people make the mistake of, oh, I finally made it to the C-suite executives, right? And when they go in and meet with them, they look, what are all these eyebrows? Close to the eye, close to the eye, close to the eye. People make the misunderstanding of, I got a meeting and I just spent 3 hours with the C-level person. Yeah, but they may have only wanted 30 minutes, and the other 2.5 hours, you lost their attention because you took too much time. Mm-hmm. So when people's eyebrows are close to their eyes, I'll stop all the time and say, okay, I know I've showed you this information. What else would you like to see? Because I get it that the longer I talk, the more I start to lose it. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. You know, I had a client that I was after for 3-4 years, trying to build up that trust. I finally won them over as a client, and they were the biggest pain in the asses ever. I had to fire them within a month.
Oh, I'm sure.
And had I known this information.
And that's why I say it's not about, people think it's about judgment. It's not. It's about understanding and grace, because you look at their face and you just think, okay, that's how they operate. It's amazing. It's changed. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it makes me a little bit apprehensive with certain people. There are certain features, and if I explain it to you, it'll make sense. Like if I say the devil, witches, or vampires, what do they all have? A lot of angled features. So it's not just about angled eyebrows, but if you have a pointy chin and a pointy downturned nose, those are, when you start adding those different things together, that's like, ooh, that could be kind of a daunting thing, or somebody I may not want to do business with. So that's where we start. I used to be a bartender. And when you learn to bartend, right, vodka and Kahlua is a Black Russian. Vodka, Kahlua cream is a White Russian. Vodka, Kahlua cream, and Coke is a Colorado Bulldog. So what are you looking for, right? What drink are you looking for? And the recipe is, I just start with eyebrows. And I personally look at eyebrows, eyes, upper lip. Those are my like top 3, because that tells me 70% of what I need to know about most people.
Yeah, I don't even drink anymore. I mean, I think the last time I had hard alcohol, probably last year, and I think I've only had 3 beers this entire year so far.
We're on opposite sides of the fence. I'm like Cinco de Mayo tonight. And
I drink Dr. Pepper and iced tea and water.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a huge coffee person. Like I have to be caffeinated. Like it's either coffee or Bang energy drinks are my go-to right now. So, but yes, we all played this game as kids, put the right peg in the right hole. And really there's 3 basic shapes on eyebrows. So look, I could talk about eyebrows for 2 hours straight because there's so much information about them, but I want to give your audience something they can walk away with, right? So 3 basic shapes are straight eyebrows, or get straight to the point. Angled eyebrows, what's my angle? And then well-rounded eyebrows are basically, they think about the people around them. So to show you examples of that with celebrities, straight eyebrows get straight to the point. These are people who love facts, figures, data, and then just stop talking. And you know this because you have that. Like even though the picture you're pulling your eyebrow up, your eyebrows are straight. Right. So facts, figures, and then just stop talking and say, what other information do you need? Right. And so let's use this in different scenarios. If it's somebody who's looking to buy a house, this is where you'd say, okay, what are you looking for? A 3.3, a 2.2, what square footage, what interest rate, what's your payment? And then just stop and say, what other information are you looking for? Don't give this long pitch, because these aren't the people that you're wasting their time. Right. And so these are people that you get straight to the point and you just shut up. And it wouldn't matter. Same thing with a car. You know, what are you looking for? V6, V8? What do you want your payments to be? You're going to put a large cash down payment. Are you looking for a certain, miles per gallon? What else? And then just stop, because they already know when they come in. And again, they grasp things very fast. So they'll tell you what they want. But if you're just talking to talk, you do nothing but lose these people's clients.
Yeah,
So for
I
people,
think that's why I hate car salesmen, because when I walk in there, I already know what's going to happen, and they're going to talk
right.
my head off, and you know, it just usually I just say, "Shut up and let me look at the car."
That's in, you know, it's such a, we all know the game. It's, let me go talk to my manager and see if I can get you a
Yeah,
better deal. And of course, somebody else has to walk in and you have to play the sitting game because they know the science behind it that they think of is, oh, well, the longer that you've invested time in the dealership, the less likely you're going to get up and walk out. Well, this day and age, people can do it all. Like I bought my last car. I did 75% of it over the internet. I knew what I wanted. I test drove one. I kept an eye out till there was a special I wanted. I said, here's my payments. If you can make it happen, cool. And I was in there for 3 hours and that was it. Yeah. So it's got possibilities. People on here, Bradley, if you know him, he owns Lightspeed. If you have a very short time frame to talk to Brad before you're going to lose his attention. And so I get straight to the point when I'm talking to him. Bill Gates, same thing. Second eyebrow, I actually have one of these. So you get to see a lovely picture of me again. Angled eyebrows are, what's my angle? Help me understand it so I can help other people. And so people, like you were talking about earlier, the bank teller who shaved off her eyebrows and had two angled ones, that's somebody who wants to be involved and kind of in control. And so that's why when people, tendency is when they shave them to create that angled eyebrow. But I didn't create this. It's I had to learn it so I could become a corporate trainer.
mm,
And that's why we'll get into this a little bit later, but there's two sides of your face, but this is the professional side. And that's why it's only on this side that I have it and this side's straight. So look in the picture of me, you can see the angled eyebrow on my right-hand side. Robert Downey Jr., kind of the same thing. You see it on the girl here. So what you're really looking for is the degree of the angle. So if it's at a 45-degree angle, that's considered an angled eyebrow.
oh, you can
And
be
you
the
want
next
to,
Iron Man.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you see this, these are people that you want to involve in the process and say, well, what do you think? Or what do you want to be involved with? And you lay out what all the steps are. And you ask them, when do you want me to involve you? When do you not?
Right.
Because when they feel like they're a part of it, these are the people who become, you know, your zealous, is it zealots? The people who will run and give you referrals and, you know, go write up testimonials and give you good Yelp reviews. These are your people.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is these people feed into the people with rounded eyebrows. So people with rounded eyebrows are always thinking about the people around them first and themselves second. And so the two celebrities I like to talk about here is Elon Musk, right? Could have retired after he sold Zip to Cash and then PayPal. But instead, what does he do? He reinvested all of his money into Tesla for electric cars. Now we're talking about going to Mars. He just bought Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
He could have retired and just sailed off into the, you know, some ocean somewhere or a beach somewhere. And instead, he's still trying to figure out how can he help the masses.
Right.
And the next one over is Oprah. You know, we all know who Oprah is, but what do we know about Oprah? Unless you've done research, you don't know about what a traumatic childhood she had or how she was told she was too heavy to ever be a newscaster or anything else. We know her because of who she interviews and what she does for her audiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's the perfect example of somebody with rounded eyebrows, thinks about the people around them first and themselves second. So if you're going into a situation where you deal with somebody like the gate agent I mentioned earlier who had rounded eyebrows, I didn't say, oh, I bet you're going to have a bad day. I said, oh, your coworkers, oh man, it's all their fault and your fault too, because they think of other people first and themselves second. So you talk about everybody around them and then you come back and ask them about their own questions. So if you were selling a house to somebody with a rounded eyebrow, you would say things like, ooh, who's going to be the first one to come visit you here? Who are you going to be doing entertaining for? That guest bedroom, who's going to stay there? Because that's what they think about. And because Oprah here has eyebrows are a little bit higher, I would walk her around the house, right? Because she needs more time to make a decision. So literally you can just learn these things on people. So going to the next screen, you see a girl with rounded eyebrows here. So you know she thinks about other people first, herself second. Over on the far right, you see the guy with straight eyebrows, get straight to the point, quit talking, and just say, what other information can I get you? And then we get to the fun one, which is the girl right here in the center, because she has a straight eyebrow on one side and an angled eyebrow on the other, much like I do. And people are like, well, wait a minute. Why they're two different sides? That's because we're all a little two-faced in that the way we are at home may be different from how we are in our external world. So if I ask you, hey, are you married? That's a personal question. This is the personal side of your face where a wedding ring would be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an easy way to remember it. This is your professional or external side. Like some people say, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I don't have a job. That taking care of everyone is your job.
Mm-hmm.
So left one, if you wear a wedding ring, it's a personal question. Hey, are you married? This is how you handle things internally or personally. This is professionally or externally. And so people can be night and day differences when you look at them, like the last girl. So now that you've learned basically high and low eyebrows and then shapes, you can just start busting through people. So let's say you're doing a presentation to all 5 of these people, high and rounded, because look, people's glasses often match, like yours and like mine, their eyebrows.
Right.
So he's got rounded eyebrows and a little bit high. He's got straighter eyebrows and they're low. She's got one more rounded on her personal side, more straight on her professional side. She's got angled on both sides of her eyes. He's got a little bit rounded, definitely angled on his professional side here. So you start learning to talk to all these people, and I'll use him as an example, or her, either one. So because they both have rounded on their personal side, they think about other people first. So you don't make them the focus. So again, if you're selling them a house or a car, car, for example, let's say an RV dealership, because I did a training for an RV dealership recently. Oh, okay. So who are you guys going to go visit when you go hit the road? Not where do you want to go? Who are you going to go visit? Right. So you start asking them other things. Oh, how many people are going to come in and ride with you? Versus if it was a straight eyebrow, okay, what gas mileage? How big is the parking area? What height are you looking for? You get to more specifics. Again, when you start looking at C levels within corporations, you start seeing the same thing. Straight eyebrows close to the eye, rounded eyebrows, straight, close to the eye. And this is what's called chameleon eyebrows. And that's like what Steve Sims has, where you can't really see what their eyebrows are. Mm-hmm. And so you have to get closer to them. And that's a consensus building technique. So I'm going to show you eye angles, and then we'll kind of wrap up here in just a second. But I like to call the eyes section of my course More Than Meets the Eye. And, because I want people to remember what it was. But eyes can tell us, your upper lid tells you one thing, the eye angle tells you another, and then your eye placement forward or backwards. But what we're really going to focus on is angles today. So if somebody's eyes angle up, they see the upside of things. So you can talk about if you're in selling situations, the pros or the features, the benefits. If you're telling a story, make sure and tell the best parts of the story to this person. Keep things very positive. Now, if you start talking about a lot of negativity with somebody whose eyes angle up on either their personal side or their professional side, depending on how you're interacting with them, they will mentally start to shut down because they think, oh, here they are, negative Nancy. But when you see somebody whose eyes angle down, and I'll use the professional side, this is who I'm going to want in my QA. And this is who I'm going to want to balance out somebody who only sees the positive or the upside of things. Because when the person whose eye angles down, they're great at anticipating problems. So if I was selling to somebody whose eyes angle up, oh, this is why our product's the best thing on the market. We've done this, this, and this. If I'm selling to the guy whose eye angles down on his professional side, I'm going to say, this isn't the first version of our product. We had 4 prototypes before this. These are the problems we had with it. And this is what we fixed, because I'm speaking their language. Because they want to know that I'm not just selling sunshine. What did I have to overcome to get us there?
Right.
So you just start looking at people again, and rounded eyebrows, kind of straight eyes here. She's got a little bit of an angle here, straight eyebrow here, but then you start looking at eye angles. And so I love this example over here. He has 2 very angled eyebrows, right, on both sides. But if you take a look at people, and here's the magic trick for it, you just take a card and you angle it according to where the inside of their eye is. Here, I'll take my glasses off. The inside of the eye, the outside. And you just take a business card on their picture on like LinkedIn or anything and go, does it angle up? Is it even? Or does it angle down? And then you know what to adjust with them. Well, looking at the guy here, both of his eyes angle slightly up. So he's really your optimist, even though he has angled eyebrows. So what does that tell me? Angled eyebrows, wants to be included. What's my angle? Help me understand it. And then he wants to hear the positive of it at the exact same time. So you learn to just start speaking their language. And I have a funny story to tell you real fast. I went to a wedding in Jekyll Island, which is on the Florida-Georgia line. And my server came up and his name tag said Hungarian. I'm like, wait a minute, I've been to Hungary before. Okay. And I walked up to him, and he was filling up my wine glass. I'm sorry, he walked up to me, and as he's filling my wine glass up, I had taken the time to look at my phone, and the way you say thank you in Hungarian is köszönöm. So he was filling up my wine glass, and I said, köszönöm. He goes, what? I said, köszönöm. He said, you speak Hungarian? I said, well, I've been to Budapest. You know, we talked a little bit about his country. And he's like, wow, you just made my day. Guess whose wine glass was never empty? Not just mine, the other 9 people at my table, because I took a few extra seconds to make him feel seen, heard, and connected, those third and fourth pillars that we talked about earlier. And it's that simple, right? And so it's the same thing. I can look at eyebrows and I just change my language of, do I get straight to the point? Do I help them understand it? Or do I talk about how other people are going to benefit? And you can just start doing it. It becomes so simple. So like if you look at these 2 people, rounded eyebrows, a little bit of space. So talk about, and this is the RV dealership again. Hey, where are you guys going to go? Where are your kids most excited to go? You don't make it about her first, but then you come back to her, but she's going to need more time. So I would start with her. And because he's got straight eyebrows that are close to his eye, once I make her feel kind of comfortable and let her kind of look around the car, I go to him and get straight to the point. So you just start interacting with people differently. So again, because I have to run here in a second, it's super easy. If you know who you're going to meet with, you go look them up on LinkedIn, any type of social media. You want to find a picture that's straight on, that's well lit. So like we use your example versus Steve's, because your head's tilted and I can't see all the features, not the best picture to use, right? Then I look at people's face and I think either what's very prominent. So if I was a characterist and I was drawing a picture of you, what would stand out the most on your face? And that's the feature I'll analyze first. Or I have those 3 specific ones: eyebrows, eyes, and upper lip. And you just figure out what makes, what's easiest for you to remember when you're talking to somebody. Then you simply change it to what I know what I want to say. How would they best receive it? And again, this is where if your presentation is going to go on to somebody else, I always say, add in auditory, visual, and kinesthetic language. Does it sound like a good idea? Do you see where I'm coming from? Can you grasp the concept? You start adding this type of language in, because you never want to make a presentation for just the person you're presenting to if it's going to have to go up the chain.
Right.
So that's why I add in the universal language as well. And then again, I just walk in. Who am I going to be talking to? What do I read? How should I modify my approach? That's it. So I know I went kind of fast because I got dropped for a call, but anybody who wants, you can either go to subtleskills.com, or that's all my Instagram is @subtleskills. I put up tips and everything here. If you scan the QR code, there's a cheat sheet of the 3 eyebrows. I'm going to be updating that here soon as well with a newer version. But all you have to remember is straight eyebrows, get straight to the point. Angled eyebrows, what's my angle? Help me understand so I can help other people. And rounded eyebrows, I think about the people around me first and myself second. So how was that, Rob?
That was awesome. Now we stop sharing and
Oh, yes. Let me stop there.
And get this off my screen. I think I messed it up here. Now it wants me to share. See, technology is just wonderful.
Yes.
And so I will just slide that down there. But everybody, if go over to Brian's website and subtleskills.com, and it's SUBTLE skills, because I know that word just messes people up. I don't know why. B is silent, but it's there.
Yeah.
But this is what makes Brian an e-hero, and I want to thank everyone for listening and paying attention. And next time you see me, you can read me if you wish.
You go, those straight eyebrows, right?
And I will try to tilt my head like my picture and really mess you up, and you'll have to judge.
Well,
Anyway.
One thing that you have that not a lot of people have is this little line right here in your chin is the highly adaptable cleft. So I know we can throw you up pretty much into any situation and you're going to adapt on the fly. So I know I don't have to babysit you in a lot of stuff.
Well, you can if you wish.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you on the next episode. Adios.
Thanks, y'all.